When I was a kid, being able to play any game at all felt like such a privilege. I grew up being the younger brother, and if a time ever came when my brother brought home a new game, it was a moment I would cherish. Even though it'd definitely be a few days before I even got a chance to play it, cause you know, I'm the little brother. Getting a new game back then felt like such an honor. It didn't even matter if the game was bad. I'd just be happy to finally have a whole new game to explore every nook and cranny in. Because that's what I did with every game we had before that. It's these kinds of fond memories that I have as a child that got me asking, how the hell did I end up with all these unplayed games? Hey guys, this video is a little different from what I normally make, but I hope that you still enjoy it. And if you do, please leave a like for me to see if I can continue to grow this tiny channel and make more content like this. Enjoy! Now, I'm mostly a PC gamer, meaning just like I'm sure many other people who use Steam, I have a shit ton of games in my Steam library that I haven't touched yet. And I mean, it happens. You see a Humble Bundle, you buy it because there was like one, maybe two games you were interested in, and then you do this a couple times, add in a couple of impulse buys from a Steam sale, and then your Steam library starts looking like my Skyrim misc inventory. Oh dear God, when the hell did I pick up any of this? Point is, if you're like me and are also guilty of this, you're now stuck with a problem that child me would implode if he learned about. You see, child me had so much time but was forever broke. With the only income I ever had was birthday and Christmas money, and no, I was not one of those allowance kids. I was allowed to live there. Point is, while child me had an unlimited time but was broke, current me now has limited time but still pretty broke, but now with some disposable income. I spent $1,000 for this. Worth it! So now the problem is no longer craving for me to be blessed with a new game. It's instead telling devs to stop making so many goddamn games, I'm drowning. It has gotten to the point where I'm kind of happy when a game gets delayed. This actually happened to me when Cyberpunk got delayed. I mean, I was kind of disappointed, but another good bit of me was like, thank God I can play all my VR games without feeling the impending rush of Cyberpunk sneaking up on me next month. But honestly, if I really start to dissect all the reasonings as to why I haven't started any of my games in my backlog, they're all ultimately just excuses. To prove this, let's just go to my absolute #1 excuse to not get started on my backlog, and that is time. We all do this, and by we, I mean the entirety of humanity, because this problem is not exclusive to video games at all. It can apply to anything. Oh, I would totally go to the gym and get fit, but I just don't have the time to go to gym. Oh, really, Karen? You expect me to believe that the only thing stopping you from getting fit is the hour a day which you could just easily subtract from your 4-hour Netflix binge? That's right, Karen. I'm on to you. Really, though, we're almost all guilty of this when we say we don't have time for something. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are people who definitely don't have time. But those people probably don't even have time to watch this video. What I mean are the people like Karen who say they wish they had more time to be able to do something, and yet waste most of their time doing literally anything else. So for me, instead of using my time to play my backlog, I instead watch YouTube, play some other games I have already played to death, or instead, just like right at this moment, making a YouTube video. And in case you're still not convinced that time isn't the reason gamers don't finish our backlogs, may I remind you of the whole global crisis we are currently in? And I'm sure that a lot of you watching right now are now suddenly flooded with an immense surge of free time. With me included. Yes! Finally, I've been given the opportunity to finally get started on my ever-growing backlog. Games I've missed out on in previous years are now mine for the taking. Finally, Oh, my Valve Index is here. Well, I gotta play Half-Life Alyx now. Beat Saber is also a no-brainer to get my exercise in. Oh, and VR chat is pretty fun. Fuck. What I really mean when I say I don't have time for something is that I don't have a high enough priority for something. And that's perfectly fine. Everyone's priorities are different. Some people play a sport every day. Some people hit the gym rigorously because their health and fitness priority is high. Some people spend countless of hours trying to beat a record, and some people simply just want to turn off their brains. And although gaming in general is a high priority for me, especially now, I now have to accept that going back to the games I missed out on is not high on the list. And I'm just thankful I realized this early on, otherwise I'd have a much emptier wallet than I would otherwise. One surefire way I avoid overbuying on games is to remember all the games I still own and haven't played, which I know for a good amount of people fails to work. But on top of that though, I pretty much won't buy a game unless I for sure know that I'm going to download it right then and there and play it. Not only does this mitigate what I buy, it actually ends up saving me money, because if there was a game I knew I was going to get but just couldn't afford to play it at that moment, it would eventually keep popping up at a lower and lower price until I finally had a chance to play it, to which at that point it literally costs less than a sandwich from McDonald's. But let's step back for a second. I already established that playing through my backlog isn't a top priority for me, but I haven't actually established why that is, and for a while now I have struggled to find out why. To answer this, I have to ask why child me was so excited and ready to go to play a new game. You see, child me was naively optimistic at the world, as I'm sure we all once were before we ended up living in the reality that this world has been in the last half-decade or so. Anyway, child me had barely played any video games, so every game, no matter if it was good, bad, or even similar to something else I played, it felt novel to me back then. Fast forward to now, I've played so many games that it kind of feels like I just played it all. I know what makes a game a game. I know what makes it tick. I know what makes a game good, and I know what makes a game bad. When I hear about a new game, a lot of the time I just start to look at it and pretty much boil it down to its bare components and then go, okay, yeah, that's just Counter-Strike with extra steps. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to video games, I've become jaded? Okay, I don't like that term. Can we use a different one instead? Alright, fine, that works. Point is that in this day and age, novelty is king for me. Nowadays, games that really interest me are most of the times the ones that offer something no other game has, or at least done as well. And a good chunk of the time, the games that do this are indie games, since indie devs are more likely to take risks. And I doubt I'm alone on this. It's for this reason that gaming often goes through so many trends. In the late 2000s, we had the whole cinematic gaming trend as games became prettier and prettier. Then Dark Souls completely turned that around with stirring up sequels and creating a subgenre known as Souls-like. Then later on, we had the whole zombie game trend, then Battle Royale, and the whole hero shooter trend that's still going on right now. All these trends usually start out with something unique and novel that no game has really done before, and then we watch as the whole rest of the gaming industry sees it and then wants to take a piece of the pie. And so they take it and beat it down for all it's got until the next cool gaming trend pops up. Which leads me to my next reason why I'm hesitant to go back to my backlog, and that is FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Let's face it, the biggest distraction from gamers completing their games is actually, well, other games. Like I said before, one of the things that draws me into playing a game is novelty. Well, what kind of better novelty than to play a game that no one else has played yet? The latest time I felt this was with Half-Life Alyx. You could say that pretty much everything else in my life melted away the moment that game released. And the main reason for that is there's no way a game I've waited a decade for and bought a whole VR headset for was gonna get spoiled to me. And in order to avoid all spoilers, I pretty much banged the whole game out in about 3 play sessions. And while I did absolutely love Half-Life Alyx, if it wasn't for the fact that I felt so pressured on not having the story spoiled to me, I would have easily just set the game aside while I play other VR titles. But now I have to ask myself why I even made the goal to finish these games. And it's not as simple as a sunk cost fallacy. I want to find the hidden gems that I may have missed out on. When I do actually end up playing a game in my backlog, there's a chance that I end up finding something truly unique and special that I ended up enjoying so much. I want to kick myself for taking so goddamn long to getting around to play it. Finally being able to discover these gems for myself is probably the sole reason why I keep trying so hard to catch up on all of it. And that is the key word here. Try. Because at some point, you're just going to have to accept that you won't get to experience all the great games you missed out on. No matter how much time you have, the rate in which new games come out far exceeds the rate anyone could feasibly play through them. So the only way to look past the endless spiraling guilt of not finishing your backlog is to accept that you won't be able to finish it. And that's okay. Honestly, it feels almost impossible to me trying to reason how little I actually play my backlog, despite how often doing so brings me genuine joy. And well, there is one final reason as to why I neglect it so much. And it's the simplest reason of all. And that's just plain laziness. And at first I thought it wouldn't really make sense. Isn't playing a video game a lazy activity? Well, physically, yeah. But mentally? Not so much. When you start to play a new game, there is so much to learn and process. New game mechanics, intricate systems, and complex stories are all a lot to process and can sometimes feel overwhelming. Yes, I realize how petty this sounds. I'm too lazy to play a video game, okay? The point is that it's way easier just to sit down and play a game you already know and are familiar with. Or even easier than that, just sit down, turn off your brain and watch something on Netflix or even something stupid on YouTube. Hey! So, maybe I'll finally get to playing Red Dead, Doom, or Spyro, or maybe I'll just spend another night in Warzone. Maybe I'll finally get to watching Full Metal Alchemist. Or maybe I'll just watch Konosuba for the 50th time already. Do what makes you happy, and don't stress too much about what you could be using your time for. Or, at least, not all the time.